All right, so I said I'd make a video on it. Here we go. This is how German tank production and donations to the Ukrainian military impact the price of Bitcoin. Tell me if you'd like to see more of these interesting crossover videos between geopolitics and cryptocurrency. Very simply, obviously this is a very complicated situation, but you can boil the situation down relatively simply. Sorry about that. Ukraine is a major member of the Eurozone economy. They are not a member of NATO, but they are a huge part of the European economy, and obviously they have a land border with the rest of Europe. Every single investor in the entire world wants Ukraine to win this war, other than anybody that's invested in Russian stocks and Russian made goods and the Russian oil and gas industry. Everybody else wants Ukraine to win for one very simple reason. Stability is good for business. Some of the assumptions that we built globalization off of are that whenever you have a stable world and you're not having nation states being conquered, you can start building factories. You can start setting up investments. Well, anybody who has studied this at all realizes that if Russia wins in Ukraine and they conquer Kyiv, they're coming for at very least Moldova next. We pretty much know that. And they would almost certainly go for Poland, Romania, Lithuania, Latvia, and the rest of the Baltic territories. They want to reestablish, Putin specifically wants to reestablish the former Soviet Union so that they have more defensible borders for whenever their demographic collapse knocks their ability to have a standing military out, because there's no young men to put rifles in the hands of. Russia wants to completely conquer Ukraine. So, why does this have to do with tanks and Bitcoin? Stability is what markets are founded on, and Bitcoin is seen, especially in the midst of a bear market, as a very risk-on asset. To get people investing in Bitcoin, you need to have a world order that is stable. You need to have a stock market that is rallying, and you need to have the Dixie going into decline. We have those last two things. We don't have a stable world order right now, and there is a spring offensive coming where the Russians are going to come under attack from the Ukrainians as the Ukrainians attempt to reconquer territory, especially trying to move towards the Sea of Azov to cut off supply lines to the Crimea and the area, the territory just south of Kherson, where the Ukrainians push the Russians back. They're going to try and make that offensive through the Russian front lines. The tricky thing is the Russians are likely to mobilize 500,000 new men at any point. They probably are going to mention that as far as they're probably going to announce that any time now. It's more than likely already begun. So they could have over 1 million soldiers on the battlefield. And for the Ukrainians to push through that, they need modern armor. So how do they do that? Well, there are about 2,500 Leopard 2 main battle tanks in Europe right now that can be put on a rail car or be put on some kind of air freighter and sent to Ukraine, and they could be in the Ukrainians' hands in the matter of weeks from their allies, and not their allies, but the supporters of the Ukrainian war in Europe. The tricky thing is Olaf Scholz and one of his ministers came out recently, a couple of weeks ago, this is older news, there's an update to this, and said that Germany is not going to allow re-export of the Leopard 2 main battle tank to Ukraine unless the United States allows for M1A2 Abrams main battle tanks to go to Ukraine. They have gotten a lot of flack for that because President Duda of Poland realizes that if Ukraine falls, Poland is next. Poland is not called the blood fields of Europe for no reason. Every major conflict between the western part of Europe and Russia has almost always been fought, from the Napoleonic Wars to the Second World War to the First World War, has been fought in Polish territory. They do not want Russia to win this war, and so Duda came out and said, we're just going to have to potentially go against the Germans and re-export the Leopards to Ukraine anyway, saying, and I'm paraphrasing, this might even be a quote, consent is a secondary issue. The main issue being Ukraine holding on and not falling to Russia. So under that pressure, over just the last 24 to 48 hours, Germany seems to have backed down, and it seems like Germany is going to allow re-export of Leopard 2 main battle tanks, and the Leopard 2 A4 producer, Rheinmetall, which is the same company that produced the tanks in the Second World War for Germany. They even said this morning that they could get up to 140 tanks, 22 of those being the most advanced Leopard 2A4 main battle tanks, to Ukraine within a year. So it seems like the tide is turning very quickly. If Ukraine gets these tanks, they're going to be in a much better position to counter-attack and go on the counter-offensive come spring and hopefully get some of their territory back. And if Ukraine pushes Russia out of their territory, obviously that's a good thing because they'll have their territory back. But at the same time, for business, which is a secondary issue to human suffering, but it is important, and that's what we talk about. For business, you need stability in Europe for people to want to invest in a risk-on asset. Tanks going to Ukraine is a very bullish thing for Bitcoin and also for the nation of Ukraine, because it allows them to fight for their territory, and it also allows the bulls to run because they're going to have more fuel put into this market by investors outside of crypto putting money into crypto because they feel that the world is a little bit more stable with Ukraine having a stronger military. And that is how German tank production and German tank re-export licenses has an impact on the price of Bitcoin. Peace.